All right. MUD 46 meeting. Let's begin with invocation and the pledge of allegiance. You will please stand and bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we're gathered here today giving you thanks for the many blessings, both seen and unseen. Thank you for the opportunity to serve our community, working in the best interest of MUD 46. Thank you for teaching us the power of respect, expecting everyone for who they are and because they are also your children. Should we fall short, Lord, we ask that you also bless us with the gift of forgiveness. Lord, we thank you for these gifts and we give you thanks in your Son's name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, we've got a full agenda today, so let's move on. Do we have any comments from the public? Okay. Do we have any requests for adjustments? Okay, moving on, consent agenda, items 5 through 10. Does anyone have any comments on those items? Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we approve of the consent agenda, items 5 through 10.
Can we pull one out?
Sure.
And what I'm thinking is the budget or the clock sheet. What's that called?
Okay.
6? Yeah.
Okay, you want to pull 6?
I want you to make a couple of comments.
Okay, why don't you make the comments and then we'll pass it.
I was looking through these costs. And what I do is I look down to the bottom line to see, you know, if we're overspending our revenue. And so this month we're $91,000 overspent compared to our revenue. And I went through the list looking to see now what is it that's significantly higher. And I only found the line item called sewer repair, about $40,000. And so what I'm wondering is if y'all, when you have an overage, if you can come back and tell us about it, tell us why we're just a little bit over budget, but we're quite a bit over spent compared to revenue. So that'd be my request. Is I really couldn't find anything else in the list that looked unusual.
Okay. Will do. Yeah, at the beginning, when we put the budgets together, we try to identify a rough number on what.
The budget's pretty good,
Yeah.
you know, but there are gonna be things that happen,
Yep.
you know, whether it's a sinkhole or line breaks or whatever, you know.
Sure.
And to add to that, you know, when we passed the budget last time, there was obviously one controversial issue, and that was the maintenance. And we increased the maintenance budget. And here we are, we're 2 quarters into that. And I wouldn't mind next time reviewing that line by month to see where we are in terms of that, spending those funds. Right?
On which line?
You know, I don't know if I have the line number. You know, I have it relayed out in a different way. And I haven't looked at this in 8 months, but you know what I'm talking about. Your multi-year, the multi-year budget that runs for 5, 6 years. there's a line that says, I call it MNO, but
Oh, maybe it's tax.
maintenance, right?
Yeah.
The maintenance, not the tax itself, but there's a line number in that budget which deals with repair. And that's really what he's talking
No,
about.
my thought is really, we have a tight budget. You know, it's really tight. And it's easy to go over it and kill it. We have an extremely low reserve. And I watch the spending to make sure that we don't cut into the little bit of growth and reserve that we've got. But
Okay, anything else?
Yeah.
Dave,
I'm okay.
do you want us to wait for you or?
No, I didn't bring that form with
Okay.
me. I brought
Okay.
the summary form. But I think you know what I'm.
I have a question for George, though. In looking at page 6, if you look at the revenues, we're about $50,000 revenue increase over the budget. It's 5.968 million versus 5.905 million. And if you go down to the expense line items, we're merely $6,000 over, not even. I don't look at that as a problem. So
I didn't.
it's
I
on
don't see
page
where you get the 6,000.
page 6.
I got it.
Okay, revenue, you see where I'm coming from there?
Revenues. Okay,
Okay, the activity versus budget, we're about $63,000 over our budget. That's a good thing in revenue. And if you move on down to the bottom of that page, where it says Montgomery County Mud 46 operating funds total, you're looking at a 260.9 versus 266.5. It's modest, if anything. So
but I'm looking at the line,
individual line item,
I'm looking at that same line where it says 91,297
Yeah.
over. It's not a credit.
that's merely for the month of
That's correct.
March.
Correct. And so I'm looking at it.
I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you or discounting what you're saying. It's just that if we have cyclical natures of our business,
We do.
and also it's dependent on rainfall,
It is somewhat, yes.
and of course, failures of our system.
Sure.
I don't look at it as a year to date through March is that,
But if you look at it over month by month, it's swinging. It
yes, it does. I agree with that.
it
Yeah.
swings. And so every time, if we don't watch it, you go
I'm with
many
you.
months at $100,000 over, you'll
What
need
you're
it.
saying is we should spend more time understanding
Yes.
what the peaks and valleys are and what's causing that. I certainly agree with that. And I'm sure that Eric could address that. Okay,
That's my request.
Okay.
Go over and just
Okay.
what happened.
that's good.
Keep an eye on it.
Yes, sir. Yep. Yes.
Okay, I want to make a motion that we pass agenda items 5 through 10 in the consent agenda.
Question on 10.
Yes, sir.
What's that about?
The board gets paid and it's the different costs that the MUD incurs based on our attendance. Am I correct? It's the board. We get per diem, and if we go to a conference and
Well, what's authorized? I mean, what are we allowed, besides coming to this meeting, which is required? What else is authorized? Don't we have to get approval for expenses? Don't we have to get approval to declare meetings if we want to go? Dave and I just went to a meeting last week, right? For the SGRA. I didn't put it down as something to declare. Am I supposed to?
you want to take over? I don't know the answer to that.
So, yeah, so that's an item that it's an item that had been a separate item on all the agendas before we went to this kind of consent agenda format. And it's very administrative and routine. I mean, whatever is submitted by directors. And some directors choose to submit for some things and so others don't for the exact same event. Well, staff looks over that, makes sure it's appropriate as an authorized expense. And if so, it's put, it's put forward.
That's what I was asking. What's authorized?
There's approved policy on that.
Correct.
Yeah.
We can get
So
that.
so if Dave or I wanted to go to a meeting, we'd have to get it approved by Eric. Is that, or Tom? How does that work?
So, well, if it's authorized under the policy, then you would just submit your expense per diem form. It would, run through staff to make sure it's in compliance with the policy and then would be approved as an administrative item under this agenda item. If there was desire to kind of get into more detail on that, you can pull that out and go through each.
Well, Maureen, would it be a pain in the rear backside to include that in the package?
Policy?
No, whatever the charges are for the month.
Well, we have that on page 6, line item, let's see, 463, 5145, and 5200.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And what that basically says is we're under our forecasted amount. 3,600 versus 78, 879 versus 1,208.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Good job, guys, gal. Okay, thank you. I understand.
Okay.
I have no concern about that anymore.
All right, let's go back. I make a motion that we pass the consent agenda, items 5 through 10. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? All right. The consent agenda is passed. Item 11, receive the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division report. Take it away.
I have quite a few things to cover, so I'm going to run at a fast clip. If you have any questions, please raise your hand or stop me. On the update on infrastructure funding, there is no update. The updates for the Bear Branch Dam, low flow vault, and the monitoring report are all in your packet on pages 38 through 42. There is no update on the wastewater strategic plan. We have our first progress meeting next week on that. And then I am on the 10-year project plan presentation.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
What do you guys got going on at the dam? Is that there's a whole bunch of activity over there?
So it's not us. We've allowed,
WGA.
the LPGA.
That's why it's satellite.
That's next week.
Yeah, I thought it was the golf thing, yeah.
It is. It's their equipment.
They have an agreement with us to be on the property and also restore the property when they're done.
Putting green quality.
Look,
I think it's called trapped.
any questions before I move into the project plan on anything Bear Branch or the MOR?
It's not a question, just calling out that there is a public meeting on May 2nd. I don't know, I mean, it's kind of in an email
It's in here too.
yesterday, yeah, just calling that out.
It's item number 12 on your agenda.
Okay,
And so it's the Spring Creek study has a May 2nd through 6th, 8 at the township is the,
well, that's the May 2nd.
May 2nd. correct.
It's from 6 to 8 and they're gonna do a rolling presentation, so you don't have to be there from 6 to 8. You can be there, and my understanding it's 30-minute presentations. I don't know if it's a rolling PowerPoint or what. Yeah, so. you don't have to-
Where is it at?
Township.
Township.
The big conference room, the boardroom.
Correct.
Now, for meetings like that, like what if we all happen to be there at the same time?
You asking for.
Like
open
board,
meeting
what if-
act
Yeah, what if,
versus
yeah,
No deliberation. You gotta be very, very careful to not deliberate with.
yeah, we can't
Other directors.
talk to each other, right? Like, we can just, okay.
Right, you can engage with whoever the presenter is and ask questions that you may have individually, but there can't be communication. That's, yeah, these joint events are, they're efficient, but directors have to be very good.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about that.
All right, so prior to the meeting, 2 documents were passed out to you. The first is this bound document, which is the 10-year project plan for the Woodlands Division of SJ. This is the detail behind everything high level that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit.
So if you're curious on the cost of a project, the breakdown of the cost, the specifics on why we're doing the project, where the project is, it is all in here. This is yours to keep, yours to take. If you want to read it, review it, have questions, bring it back. We'll definitely go through any questions that you do have. But what I'm going to focus on is the other paper document that you have, which says the Woodlands Division 10-year project plan. All right. Pages 2, 3, and 4 deal with level of service. Page 2 is some headlines from around the state of Texas that deal with water quality or water loss issues. I bring this up because in a lot of cases, these other entities did not plan ahead. They were more reactive than proactive. Our 10-year project plan is a proactive approach at managing and maintaining the system rather than waiting for breaks and so on and so forth to occur before we actually replace items. Page 3 talks about the level of service that's desired, which is on the far right of the scale. And page 4 talks about the level of service that's been experienced so far. Award-winning facilities, very limited service interruptions, hurricanes, flood, ice storms, doesn't matter. It's just like a normal day. Top right of page 4, there's been one boil water notice in 50 years of the wilderness. This boil water notice was due to one resident who but the way the system is configured, the entire Woodlands had to have the boil water notice. Bottom right of page 4, we try to stay out of sight, out of mind. That way nobody has to think about where the water's coming from nor where it's going. Pages 5, 6, and 7 talk about how projects are determined. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe we should rethink the out of sight, out of mind thing, because the value of water is important. And if we just stay hidden, then people don't understand the value of water.
I agree with you. And I think as part of this presentation towards the end of it, I think that's not gonna, we're no longer gonna be out of sight, out of mind, under the radar.
Okay.
This-
I mean, I understand from a construction standpoint.
Agree entirely. So on page 6 is essentially the crux of the entire asset management plan that we have. We look at 3 main things. We look at the likelihood of an asset failing, we look at the consequence of that asset failing, and then we look at any mitigating factors that can reduce the likelihood of that asset failing or likelihood of that, the consequence of that asset failing. The equation on the bottom is what of page 6 is what we use to come up with a VRE, a business risk exposure. That number allows us on page 7 to sort all assets. And so the categories are there. You can see depending on if it's less than 10, 10 to 20 or above 20, how we actually handle that asset. If we look at it like a lift station, for example, and we see that 2 pumps need to be replaced. We don't rehab the entire station, we just replace them. We look at that same lift station, we see the concrete's bad, the panel's bad, and the concrete or the pumps are bad. We'll probably look to rehab the entire station. So it's not that we go and say the panel's bad, let's fix the whole thing. We actually do look piece by piece and put projects together. Page 8, we get the question on what's your selection process? Is this item going out for a bid? Are you going to get proposals on this? Page 8 lines out the general process for everything over $25,000, whether it's engineering or construction. So if we're going to design something, we'll follow the first half of the process. When it comes to construction, we typically do not do low bid. Low bid, you get what you pay for. What we do is a competitive sealed proposals. That's where we take at least 50% of the cost is in consideration. The other 50% or so is qualifications. We want to make sure whoever's doing the job has painted houses or laid pipe before. It's not their first time. Like mine. Page 9 are the main focus areas of the 10-year project plan. The left-hand side is the wastewater system. The wastewater system, I'm not going to touch on too much. It's essentially everything we talk about in the strategic plan put into the 10-year project plan. We know that during phase 2, that strategic plan is going to be adjusted in capacity and cost, but we needed to put something in the project plan, so we just brought forward everything y'all have already seen. The main focus I want to talk about is on the right side of page 9, which is the water system. And by the way, both of these pictures that you see here are directly from the Woodlands Division system. One on the left is a sewer pipe, and one on the right is an AC line where the collar's been broken on. So on page 10, what we've added in are the ask. Essentially, when we present information at the end of it, we're not always good at saying what we're looking for y'all to do. So we've gone through and added in this case, ask number 1. This is to understand the funding needs for the R&R fund funded via the SJRA Woodlands Division O&M budget annually. The R&R fund is the cash funded portion to fund the projects. Okay. There's another portion we'll talk about here in a minute, which is the long-term financing section. On page 11 is the summary of the R&R fund or the cash funded projects. Almost every project you see on page 11 is less than 30 years. There's one that sticks out on the top left, EST, which is elevated storage tank number 6. That one has 75 to 100-year lifespan, but it's in this project plan under the R&R because we do have majority of the money already. So rather than moving it out and putting it into bonds, just left it here since it's already partially funded.
Could you repeat back what you said about most of the projects on the left are under what?
30 years life.
Okay.
Service.
Meaning that they have a service life of 30 years and these are coming up against it, or meaning what?
Meaning we have to replace them before 30 years. So like the well rehabs, typically every 12 to 15 years, we have to conduct a well rehab on the same well.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're not going to bond fund it for 30 years if we have to do it twice in that 30-year period.
Okay.
And you have $6 million roughly that you do R&R each year.
Correct.
And this number in this plan is in addition to that. That should be shared. Part of the system you're not, like Sterling Ridge is not in that plan.
Sterling Ridge, if there's anything that needs to be done in Sterling Ridge, it's in that plan. I believe there's a sewer line in Sterling Ridge
But west of Gosling,
for the AC lines.
AC lines,
From Cockridge Crossing west,
West.
there's no AC lines.
okay. And so that R&R would be, if something comes up, you use
It
that
could
$6
be
million
added. Correct.
into that pot.
Right. But then if I use, and let's flip over to page 12 so I can kind of explain this a little bit. So on page 11, that was the summary. That summary equals up to about $83 million in change. We have $21 million cash on hand in the R&R right now. That money is from projects that we were going to do. We put them on hold when we did the strategic plan, and we're not going to do those projects. We're going to take cash we have on hand and do other projects that are already in the project plan in here. They were last year as well. That means we need $62 million over this 10-year period. We currently fund the R&R with $6 million a year. Therefore, over the 10-year period, $60 million, $2 million margin of error, contingencies 30%, so on and so forth. All that to be said, if the project plan stays like it is and there's no additions in the R&R, then we believe the $6 million that's already in the budget every year will take us forward with no increase needed. Albeit if what David says does occur and there's additional projects that occur and y'all say, hey, cash fund this, and they go into R&R, you either have to push something out or just add more money to it. But as far as we know right now, everything that's cash funded, can handle the $6 million.
Maybe jumping ahead. So you have this book in here, you have a table.
Right.
And it has the value of the capital being spent.
Right.
That is the value of the capital being spent.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. That does not include any bond issuance or anything else.
Right.
Because I believe
But
they're
it is it's beyond the 6 million, is it?
on that one, it was, and here's the reason. Yep, that one was. He was looking at page 6 of the bound document. You have a question?
No.
Which does take us to page 13. So there's 2 portions to the project plan. First portion is R&R fund, which is cash fund. Just talked about that. The second portion is the, what we call bond portion. That starts on page 13. That's also page 6 in your bound book. It's that summary. Tell me if I've confused anybody. I've rattled through these all day.
Pretty quick.
What?
That's fine.
Oh, you got a longer agenda than just me, so
That's okay. Keep going.
I'll take a breath every other word. So page 13 is ask number 2. Ask number 2 is at a future board meeting, approve the river authority to issue debt for water and wastewater capital replacement projects.
And that's based on page 6 of the whole.
That is based on page 6. which is well above the $6 million a year. Which is why we broke it into two parts. You have your cash funded that's in O&M, and then you have the whole nest of everything else. Okay. Page 4, yes, ma'am.
500 million. Yeah,
Which is why it's gonna be more of a public type thing coming forward and the value of water and everything else, so. But y'all jumped ahead of me, so. Which is fine. Page 14 explains a little bit more about ask number 2. When we come in and we say $500 million is needed for these projects to replace AC lines, there's a lot more to that. So page 14 goes through a little bit more detail in, okay, this is preliminary design, this is survey, this is geotech, land acquisition, program management, all those different contracts that are needed just to get to the point where you can start construction. Then during construction, all the testing, the inspection, everything else to make sure a quality line is put back in. So,
Question.
yes.
The original report from last week and this one is different both in page count and how you set this up with
Correct.
asks. There's no change here to the bound book though.
Correct. Bound book
Okay.
is the same. What we did is we've met with some directors and the PowerPoint changed based off of feedback from.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to track that. Thank you.
So pages 15 through 19 discusses the AC water lines. On page 15 on the right-hand side, you see an age profile for the AC water lines. You can see they were installed around 1973 through about 1984, 1985. AC lines typically have a 50-year lifespan. So the stuff that was installed 1973, 74 is right at 50 years old. Left-hand side of 15 just talks more about some of the concerns we have with AC pipes. One thing is ground movement definitely does impact AC lines because they are pretty rigid. They move the break. Page 16 is a map in the middle that shows all the AC water lines in the Woodlands. Each color that you see is a different segment of AC water lines to be replaced over this 12-year period. Now, the project plan is 10 years. We're looking to fund over 10 years, but the construction would actually last 12 years because you fund before you can go to construction. Page 17 is the leak history of the AC water lines.
Could I
Yes,
ask one thing? You have this table down here.
we do.
Is there a way you can put the year that line was installed?
Yes, we were asked that at a different meeting. I'm looking to see if I can get that.
Yes, yeah, okay. Thank you.
That way you can see. Now, on these line segments, they were not always originally set to be replaced based on age, right? So that's the first indication. But then we looked and said, okay, are there critical care facilities? What does this line serve? And so then we adjusted the phasing to say hospitals, schools, daycares, whatever it may be. You want to make sure they're taken care of first and have reliable water, versus a Taco Bell. So.
Well, the loss.
You turn the water off to those folks.
So page 17 is the break history of the AC water lines. Going back from 2015 to current, you can see there's nothing in double digits. That doesn't mean it's not increasing. What we are looking at though is keep in mind our lines start at 12 inches and go up to 30 inches. That's a point of confusion. If you look on page 16, you'll see it's some 8-inch and 10-inch AC line. That's inside the plants. That's not actually distribution pipe, but when you put it in, it's a half a day's of work for 200-foot pipe. But one thing to keep in mind is river authority lines are generally the larger lines. So if they do go out, then you do have a higher potential to lose for people, a lot of people to lose water service. Pages 18 and 19 talk more about the recommendations and why not to kick the can down the road. What we're looking at is replace all the AC water lines over a 10 to 12-year period. Utilize some type of long-term financing such as bonds to pay for it. Replace the AC with HDPE majority, in some cases PVC. HDPE is good. It's a little bit more flexible. It's also fused, so you don't have nearly as many joints, therefore less potential leaks. Last item you'll see on that page is the Woodlands Parkway PVC line. This line was installed in 2002. For give or take the last 6 years, we had a rash of breaks for about a 5-year period. And so we put it on the project plan because of the level of service. However, over the past 18 months, we have not had nearly as many breaks. Actually, we haven't had any. So what we've done is we've pushed it to the end of the 10-year project plan and said, we're just going to watch and see what happens. Maybe we've got all the bad parts. Maybe we didn't. If we didn't, then we'll bring it to you and say, well, would y'all like to do? So. All right, page 20. This is bringing everything together. So on the left-hand side, But this is bringing all the long-term financing. Left-hand side is the water system at $230 million. This includes the AC water lines, the Woodlands Park line, just to make all the numbers match up when you're trying to compare back and forth. Well number 40, this is an addition to the well system that we have, but at the same time, we're looking to remove 3 old wells from this system. It is a new well, but we're taking 3 out of 6. It's also replacing some ground storage tanks that are concrete and had structural issues that we repaired a few years ago to extend the life for about 10 years.
Can you take a comment now
Whatever.
about the ground storage tank?
Yeah.
You know, I paged through these when you handed them out the first time. And one thing that I didn't see was alternatives that y'all have considered. So
Okay.
for example, on the ground storage tank over at plant number 2, there's what, 3 tanks there?
There's 2. 1, 2. Yeah.
2. And so the first thought I had was you're in the plan here, you're replacing a 2 million gallon tank with a 2 million gallon tank.
Mhm.
And the question I had was, have y'all thought, do you need to replace that tank? You know, you've got water coming in from Lake Conroe now that didn't have when the tank was built. You know, what other considerations? Do you need a 2 million gallon tank, or would 1 million do?
No, it's a perfectly understandable question. So the water source in this case,
And I don't need an answer now. It's just a comment that I'd like to see is what alternatives have you considered?
in a lot of cases, just as an FYI, we go to the water model, we go to TCQ regulations. And that's what actually dictates what we need.
It's supply for it, so it's not like the Lake Conroe water just like goes and gets distributed.
But I understand, but and in the last, what was the age of this tank? 20 years, the control systems have gotten better. Do you need tanks?
Yeah,
That's just a question. Do you need the same volume tank? Can you, it's just a question.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying,
What
but
I'm asking for is what the alternatives considered?
when it comes to TCQ regulations and fire flow requirements, those are the 2 main things. Because although the water source has changed in some cases, you're blended, you still need the fire protection. And the TCQ still requires a certain amount of storage in gallons per minute to be kept on hand. So just FYI, we did look at it.
And that's what's nice about your elevated tanks.
Agreed, but the TCEQ requires ground and elevated.
Oh, really?
Now, on that site, just to FYI, there's 2 tanks. One's 2 million gallons and one's 3 million gallons. When the 3 million gallon comes up for construction, we're looking to reduce that one to a 2 because we know we don't need the 3. Plus it should reduce the cost.
you have to look at the cycling of it also in ground sourcing.
You know, if I'm gonna rubber stamp these things, there's plenty of
Probably
knowledge.
explain it to you also, like outside
Okay.
the meeting if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of information to just say, yeah, but I'm wondering what else is considered.
Well, I guess
Have you
you would
considered
have to have
the-
like directive, like you're just asking, have you considered a smaller tank?
Sure,
And then they can answer like why a smaller tank wouldn't work. Is that what you're asking?
sure.
Also have to keep full operational redundancy in case one tank is down. Because we do have to take them down to clean them. So if I have a 1 mg tank and then a 3 mg or a 2 mg tank, I can't offer the same level of service and fire protection if one's out of full service. I have that issue at Water Plant 5, who only has 1 tank in a service hospital. I see what you're saying, but we'll take a look at it.
So are we on page 6 now?
We are on page 6.
Okay, so, I've been kind of asking about 8 months now about the cost per, 1,000 gallons of capital. And Ed told me a number in the other meeting, which was $0.015
Per
million. per million
Per $1 million financed.
financed, right? And, so I finally got to the point where I just decided to take my own shot at it.
Okay.
So what I did was I took the capital budget in that line as the total. And what I did was I made a waterfall chart. And so in year 2024, we're going to spend $9 million. So that's worth 14 cents. And I laid this waterfall chart out, then I added it up. And it shows you that over this 10-year period, if I'm correctly, that our cost per 1,000 gallons is gonna go up $7.50. So as we begin to talk about these, it all goes back to how many, what's the water rate gonna be?
And we are bringing a spreadsheet next month
Mhm.
with those numbers,
Yeah.
with those projected.
Yeah. It'd be good to have all the data, meaning
Right.
the GPR pit, but this is my number, so I did it, I think correctly. I only went out 10 years. The bond is out 30. And, but it's a big number, $7.50. And you can see how it progresses up the line every year. And I think a lot of residents are really surprised when we go from maybe doing $5 now. We add on top of that, another 7.
Which is why that same conversations always exist, and that's why page 2 of this document exists. Because when you look at the impact of the residents of a lot of Texas communities all across the state or across the union, they're kicking the can down the road because they don't want to pay for it. And I get it, I understand, but we're going to bring it to y'all and say, this is everything that we see that's out there that should be done to maintain the level of service you have today. Next month, we're going to bring the draft budget. We'll also bring the potential rate increases that we see tied to the bonds. But the long-term, this page right here is 5 bonds over a 10-year period. So just keep that in mind as well.
And the wastewater number you have of 300-some thousand,
Correct.
what does that include?
So on the wastewater side, 320 million, rounded up slightly. The wastewater plant 1 at the top is 226 million. That is the number pulled from the strategic plan.
Right.
So whatever we talked about a few months ago, pulled from there, put in here. We expect that number to go down once we right size the treatment plant.
And that's refreshing waste treatment plant number 1.
Correct.
Total cost
From waste, yes, from the strategic plan
of the strategic plan.
that we're going to refine, and it should drop down, but I had to put a number in.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
So this is, at this point, this does appear to be worst case, especially on the wastewater side.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know what you guys, how you react to it, but when I heard that number, $7.50 is.
I would say it's not that cities don't want to pay for their infrastructure. I would say that they are not able to. Like a lot of cities would not be able to, and I'm sure a lot of us would also say our township would not be able to pay additional $7 per 1,000 gallons of water, whatever your number is. So I would not want to have a poor reflection on other cities and just kind of, that their water systems all over the state that are having issues. And we're very lucky that we're in the position that we are in because our water system does not have the same issues because it was a master plan community. And so we don't have necessarily pressure planes fighting against each other, ESTs that have to be put offline because it's busting pipes due to the pressure. We don't have that. So we're very, very lucky. What I would ask is, so well number 4, you're saying you have to build a new well?
Potentially, because what we're
Okay.
looking at the service life and condition of those 2 or 3 wells.
So we have subsidence coming up as an issue. How would that be reflected? Like, why would we necessarily go to constructing a new well knowing subsidence is an issue versus, maybe discussion of surface water?
So keep in mind, surface water is not a guaranteed 24/7 source. There's been quite a few times we've got to shut the plant down for a few hours to a few days for electrical maintenance or whatever else. And in that
Yeah.
break, and in that case, you have to rely entirely on your groundwater system.
Well, I mean, I would just say, those are the discussions that I think have to be had in public because, if it was near my house and we've got subsidence issues and people's houses are, losing value. And then you're coming in and saying, I'm going to build a new well. I just think that those things need to be discussed. And then the other thing is, so we've got 10 years, right? 10 years, 500 million. What's going to happen in the next 10 years? Is it another 500 million?
So
Is
if you
it?
hold that, I'll get to that here in
Okay.
1 second. What I did want to show y'all is page 21. So in years past, y'all have not seen a page 21. What you've seen in years past is we would tell you, here's a project plan, but we still need to talk AC lines. Here's the project plan, but we still need to talk about plant 1. Page 21 puts everything together. There is no finessed version of the project plan. We didn't give options because the conversations need to exist. This is everything that we know of, have the conversation, what makes the final cut. If we're gonna keep the system in the level of service, this is what we're recommending. But total project plan to cash fund and long-term cash funding is 632 million. We do have $46 million cash on hand, 21 million from R&R and 25 million from a bond fund. Both of those are figured into this, but 632 million is the expense. So now, to answer,
Of which 230 million is finance charges.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my
It's,
head.
what's right, it's on here. That's not finance numbers. It says water system financing.
Correct. Yeah, the 632 million is only project cost. It does not include issuance cost, financing, anything else.
Oh, no debt service. This is capital cost to do the project.
But this one over here, does that 1.5% you gave me, that include bond issuance cost?
Yeah, that's debt service. and
That serves everything, right?
Yeah.
Principal payback.
So we do not have a digital twin model, do we? We do not have like a water model that has predictive qualities.
So that's phase 2 or 3. We're halfway through that at this point in time.
So what will the digital twin be able to do what are you looking for it to be able to do?
That's a longer conversation. Predict water quality for one, and also predict the rates. It's partially the reason we're doing the rate study and the rate model is to tie the project plan into the rate model. So we can sit there and say, hey, if you want to take these projects from 10 years to 20, what does the rate look like? What are the interest rates look like? What if I change?
So is it a true digital twin model where it's like feeding SCADA data? And the reason why I'm asking this is because you're able to predict when a line would break. So was that something that you would like look at? You're able to, yeah, potentially, like is that something that you're like kind of looking at, or are you just saying this line has met this age? We've had paper records that it was, broken here, here, and here. Cause I work with a lot of cities and
Right.
usually it's paper records, right? It's not.
So what we've done, like on the force main side, we've actually dug up the force mains at different ARV sections and pulled out coupons and inspected those. Original thickness was, ½ inch, and now it's 1/4 inch. So we can estimate then, okay, it's this long, and obviously we think it's gonna last this long. On the AC side, every time there's a break that occurs, we go back to good pipe and we pull a coupon from there and take a look at that. That's where we get some of the leaching from. That's also where we start seeing divots on the inside of the pipe. When you start getting the divots on the inside of the pipe, it starts to weaken, obviously, because you're leaching out everything that's in there. That's what we've seen to help kind of gauge this. So it's age and its condition. We've done some smart fall technology, but it wasn't actually reliable. Sewer side with a lot of CCTVs, infrared testing and stuff like that. So don't know if that helps.
Well, I'm just thinking about is there a way to plan this smarter? Or are we just looking at it like, okay, we just need it's hit the 10 years, it's probably had this many breaks, let's go in and replace it. Is that how we're looking at it? Or are we looking at it like from a digital twin aspect of predictive
Not
modeling?
entirely out.
I want to call it operational modeling because that's really what it
Not
is.
entirely from the modeling aspect, more about the boots on the ground that actually see the pipe. And then talking to areas, okay, your ground conditions in this area are like this. Like over in California, AC pipe can last 60+ years. And it's kind of like tires, you get tires and it says, it has a 30,000 mile warranty. Some may last 20,000, some may last 70,000.
Yeah, I just want to get, suppose a level of understanding of how you're approaching it. And I'm sure you have a report. I don't know if you shared it or not. I just don't, I
I
mean,
think we did last year. Part of it was the LAN report that was done for the 20-year CIP.
I did not look at it. I don't go.
I know, I'm just.
I work for LAN, but I don't talk to them about.
But we asked them to also check our information and confirm or reprioritize the AC water line.
It's my understanding that was a paper data entry kind of effort. Like I'm talking about no, I'm talking about like an operational model. Maybe we can talk more about digital twin and operational model.
Yeah, I'm just from my perspective, I like boots on the ground to see the pipe, touch the pipe, take coupons on the pipe. I mean, modeling has its quirks here and there, but yeah, definitely a conversation outside the.
No, not the way I do it.
So page 22 is the last page I have. This brings up, going back to Deidre's question from a minute ago. What this is showing is the total cost of the Woodlands Division assets. It's about $2 billion. The 632 million represents about 31% of the system to be replaced. From looking forward and everything we can see, the rest of the system, the other 69%, will need to have some work done throughout from 2033 through 2050. But the bulk of that work is going to be around 2050 on. In 2050 is when you're going to have wastewater plant 2 that needs to be renewed, similar to wastewater plant 1. That's when you're also going to want to start looking at these PVC lines that were installed around 1980 that have about a 70, 75-year lifespan, possibly 100. So to answer Deidre's question, in 5-10 years, we're not seeing another huge chunk of, hey, we need another 100, 200 million here. From what we can tell today, what we've studied, you got till 2050 before you need a huge chunk of change.
So the debt that's not on this on page 21, the 632,000, that's CapEx only. Okay. And do we know how that's going to be broken up between the MUDs, if at all?
It'll be in the wholesale rate, so it'll be based off of water consumption. SJRA will issue a bond, and then we'll just put the debt service into the wholesale rate.
And the bonds will be in your name.
That's what that sheet I handed you.
So what about the supply side? Because y'all have come to us and told us about, I don't know, the TRA, you know, our interest in, is it Lake Livingston?
Right.
And that was a $500 million project in and of itself, if I'm remembering correctly.
I believe that was about 25 cents ultimately on the bill at that point in time, because I believe the industrial customers were picking up most of the tab with their water usage.
And there is some revision. We're updating the raw water master plan, and there are some revisions to that.
I think for us to better understand like our system in the next 10, 20, 30, 20, 50 years, I think adding that information in might be helpful to everyone so that, you know, we're not thinking this is holistic, what the Woodlands is going to have to think about and pay for the next 10, 20 years. Like we have an understanding of the supply side and
Right.
what we've been told in the past on the supply side.
That'll, you know, when the raw water master plan wraps up
Later this year.
so that'd be later this year. So the good news is there's no action on this document or anything we're talking about today. The R&R fund will be in the budget that we'll discuss next month. I'll have to see if we can get some of that raw water supply stuff, but sometime before the end of the calendar year, we're looking to bring supplemental agreements to the MUDs, draft forms, so y'all can review to go with ask number 2, which is to approve long-term capital maintenance for water and wastewater. A lot on your agenda, but any questions?
You know, you have that, what do they call it, the final accounting 6.
Yes.
And in that document, there's about $168 million that I paid over that, you know, 1 through 6. Obviously, that didn't build the whole system, but did it?
And the 6th and final, the total system cost was the cost for the entire system.
The entire system.
Because it started
It started long
using
ago.
dollars.
Okay.
that
Yeah,
were-
1980.
So there's no money, other money put into it, that's sewer and water, 168 million.
As an aside,
Yes.
there were only 4 boards represented at your presentation, 46, 47, 60, and trustee. And it really needs to go on record that you guys did a great job in the preparation of the bound document, which I'm sure everybody will have a chance to look at. If we have any additional questions, how would you suggest that we approach the SJRA?
What we typically have done in the past is we've sent everything to Jim, in this case, Eric. That way, if you have a question, somebody from MUD 60 has a similar question.
Got it. Okay.
So everything to Eric and he'll funnel it through us, if that's okay.
Perfect. Good. Thank you.
What about for those of us who don't go to those meetings? I mean, you look at these numbers and we get sticker shock. And then we have to explain to our constituents how to get over the sticker shock. Getting back to, I think, Deidre's question, are we looking at alternatives and can I say, yes, we looked at this alternative and this alternative, and we chose this because we live here in the Woodlands and blah, blah, blah.
In some cases you can, and so like on the wastewater plant, right? That entire 15 months was evaluating what does everybody want? What are we going for? What are we looking at? So a lot of different options. Renew in place, build half here, build the whole thing here. That entire wastewater side, yeah, a lot of options. On the water side, you can look at piping material, or you can look at delaying. You can say, okay, I don't want to do it in 12 years. I want to do it in 15. I want to do it in 20. And we could look at doing those different options, but when it comes to replacing the pipe is still needed.
But how do we get the pro and con of every decision that you're making?
And I think Eric's going to cover that a little bit under his GM report, the PEC meeting, the consultant.
As far as the pros and cons of.
Well, it's just the whole public education.
There would, yes, I'll cover public education.
And so as part of that process, there's going to be internal discussions to say, okay, what does the resident know? How do we tell the resident? How do we inform them? How do we keep y'all informed? Because y'all are approached. That's going to be wrapped up before any dollars are spent.
Any more questions? All right, thank you very much. Very detailed.
More detail they can get.
Yeah, could you start making these thicker?
We do have a thicker one on this.
I did want to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
So when those thieves broke into that fence at Bear Branch,
Yes.
the sheriff's office said they tried to call the SJRA and they didn't get a number. They didn't know. And for that was part of the reason why they let those guys go. But I was thinking, we had to pay for that fence repair, or you did. And,
It's built into the 5 months maintenance budget, pays
okay.
us to do
Could-
that.
Could we get you to maybe reach out to the sheriff's department so they could get a better number to call someone when that happens? Because they said the thieves obviously cut through the fence and they couldn't charge them for that crime because they had no one to charge them. That was what I was
I
told.
don't understand why they can't get hold of us. But
Yeah, okay.
So how much was that repair? Ballpark, $500, $1,000,
Probably less than 1,000.
less than 1,000.
Okay.
Problem is with the DA, not with the sheriff's department.
I know. Spring Creek Detention Study, do we have an update on that?
The update was there's a public meeting on May 2nd.
Okay, great. Do you have an update on pending litigation?
I do. Not entirely certain what you're looking for. But of the 4 entities that are not paying, Conroe's past due is up to 11.4 million. Magnolia is up to 0.6, 0.7 million. Quadvest is 10.3 million. And Woodland Oaks is 0.9 million.
0.9.
0.9, or 900,000.
Who was that?
Collected. What's that?
Did you say Woodlands?
Woodland Oaks.
Woodland Oaks, okay.
It's a utility up on
Okay.
the Egypt. Fish Creek Thoroughfare, whatever road you want to call it. So that's the current. On the litigation, if you recall, there are 4 cases. And I will. I'm not gonna walk you through all of them. I'm just gonna tell you. On the EBJA case, that's the one where a ruling came out in December. Said our contracts were valid and incontestable. The Quadvest is going to appeal that. And they're looking for us not to object to that. And so for that to occur, we're working with their attorneys to draft a Rule 11 letter to identify what concession they'll give for us to say we don't object. That's been in negotiations for about 4 months. And that may initiate Quadvest and Woodland Oaks paying what they owe us, and then staying current going forward until the case is finally ruled on by the Supreme Court. Antitrust case, there are depositions. Hurry. I haven't heard that we have a trial date yet, but I know that depositions are underway. The rate case and the breach case, those are on appeal.
By who? By them? Oh, by you.
We didn't like the movie. What else would you like to know that I? can share?
Oh, that's more than,
So I have a question. So you have contracts with 160 some,
149.
149
Well, 80 contracts, 140 participants.
participants. And so when a new participant, puts a development up and, drills a well,
There are no new participants.
there are no new participants.
Not until the.
No, what I mean is that there are new actors in Montgomery County extracting
Oh,
groundwater.
yeah.
Who are not involved with this at all. They just
Correct.
take their groundwater
And
and.
even some of the people that are in our GRP, if they've developed something since the rules changed, they do not have to join the GRP.
So Magnolia drills a new well and
That gets up.
that gets.
They have to report that. But if take Quadvest, for example, or Aqua Texas, any of the investor-owned utilities, if they go out and do a new neighborhood that was not under the original regulation, they do not have to join and report fund people or pay to us.
any more questions? All right, Brad, do you have anything?
Just legislative session, we are very, spend a lot of time on that right now. There's been over 8,000 bills introduced, about a 15% increase over the last session. A lot of hearings going on right now. We're tracking a number of bills. It's kind of a sprint. Got about 5-6 weeks left. It's about 6 weeks left at the end of the session, so it's go time.
And this is all on their agenda, correct? And you can access that agenda online?
You're talking about the legislature?
Yes.
Yes. If you go to TLO, you can do searches by, if you know the bill, you can search by the bill number, House bill or Senate bill, and it'll pull up the status of the bill, if it's going to committee, if it's going out, if it's passed one chamber and is going to the other, or you can do a word search. If you have particular search terms that will pull up bills of interest, you can search that way as well. But Texas Legislature Online is the best resource for that. AWBD does have their usually a weekly e-blast if you are receiving that, and they have a link to bills of interest that they are following, and there's hyperlinks there that you can go to bills as well.
Could we use the bills of interest on our website? Stuff that pertinent to us?
That's a decision for the board. I don't know that it would necessarily be helpful, honestly, because number one, it's roughly about a 15% passage rate on bills from session to session. So there's a lot of bills that get introduced that may look scary, but aren't going to pass, or they get overhauled in committee and you have a committee substitute. The other issue is when you have these hearings, if there's something that's of incredible interest, then you can have folks go to try to be there to testify. The problem is a lot of these hearings, you don't get but 24 hours notice, 48 hours notice, maybe. So I think it may cause more confusion or concern among the residents who aren't really in the weeds on understanding how the legislature works, and it may create a lot of false alarms. And this is just.
Well, how do we create transparency with the residents?
Well, I think that is, TLO is there for folks who are interested. And then at the end of the session, we do a summary for all of our district clients of bills of interest. And if you want to put that up, that lets people know what's passed.
Bills of interest that only apply to us, that passed
That
Okay.
actually passed.
or that are being considered.
No, well, our summary focuses primarily on bills that passed. We do have some that we'll talk about that were introduced, but ultimately were not passed. But that is actually once the session is done, a summary of what happened and what passed during the legislative session. Because if you're trying to track and make a decision about among those 8,000 bills, which ones are important to your constituents or not, that's a difficult task.
Does AWBD maybe do presentations during the session?
Not during it, because everybody's all hands on deck at the session. So.
Well, I mean, like,
there's afterwards.
During the legislative, like during these months where the legislature, no?
No, there's the blasts that go out that we work with AWBD on to put together with our lobbyists, the bills of interest for the entire mud community. It's hard to have.
I was just thinking that,
so
so TAWWA does on behalf of like the water industry. So I didn't know if AWBD maybe had something similar, or if maybe they have information on their website.
So they do.
And we would just link it.
They have their bills of interest, and y'all could put that out there. Yeah, if you felt like that would be of value to have a hyperlink to AWBD's online list of bills of general interest.
Yeah.
You could certainly do that. That would be an easy way to put something out there where you're not trying to be an independent filter of what's important and what's not. You're relying on AWBD to be a filter of those 8,000 bills.
So there was an ABW meeting a week or so ago.
I just got it last today, actually.
And
Yeah, I do too.
there was an update. And I'll tell you, there was no inflection in the guy's voice about putting me to sleep. So he went on for 30, 40 minutes. And so, it's a lot of detail here. And Tom, if you get interested in a bill, you go to that website and you can tap in your email. It'll give you a text. It'll give you email warnings.
Yeah, you
Something's
set
coming
for
up.
alerts.
Alerts and all that.
If there's a bill that you care about, you can get alerts versus checking every day. It'll alert you when a bill moves, if it moves into committee, if it moves out of committee, if it passes, if it goes to the other side.
There's also a Twitter handle that tells you
Okay.
what's happening.
Yeah, it's a whole, you can spend as much time as you want.
Can of worms. Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
Typically, AWBD, the conference will do a big summary once everything's
Yes.
done.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Item 15.
Annual resolution on developed district status. Your status has not changed. You remain a developing district and are subject to the 80% rollback.
We don't vote on that.
No, you vote on the resolution that you're a developing district. You don't vote on what your tax rate is
No,
until
but
the fall.
but that vote will be in June or July.
For your tax rate.
No,
No.
for the 8%, 3%.
Well, so there's your resolution to declare if you're developed or developing, that
Right.
makes you subject to either
Right.
3.5% or 8%. That's what's on the agenda for today.
I thought, I guess, we did this, when we first got on the board.
We did look at it. I have questions on that. Yeah.
My expectation was that we would come around June, we would readdress that.
So I think that one was, last year, I think LGA, it took them a bit longer to produce those exhibits that we rely on to prepare that. But typically for all of our district plans, it's done earlier. And I say typically, this just started in 21. So this is only our third year of all districts having to
20.
make this election. Yeah, it was.
What
passed
is the
tonight.
current
20.
number of ESFCs at this point for 46?
Right.
The current number of ES,
So the goal is here with LGA to get it.
they'll take care of that for us? Okay.
Hear that. So for water, your ESFC's 7,800, and for wastewater is 8,171. And
Okay,
then
could you repeat that again? 70?
7,800 for water, and for wastewater, 8,171. Which brings you, based on the updated amounts that the WWA put out for your ultimate connections, you're at 92.7% for water and 89.9% for wastewater.
How recent is that?
That the WWA put out, those numbers that we got are for the end of 2022. So
Got it. Okay.
And down about the threshold.
Mhm.
So within a couple of percent of the threshold right now.
Now, this has been fairly academic for this district. You haven't, increased your rates and your revenues into that percent number. But will come a time that you may, wish to go have more revenue than 3.5%.
Right.
Once you flip to past 95% and go to develop, and you can't generate that without automatically having to, be subject to an election or rollback.
So last year we got I'm going by memory, a thick document that was someone's study. You know, and has that been updated? It was several years old. And I expected this to go for June, so I have a tickler.
Yeah.
To say, I need to look at this in May and be ready for the June meeting. So I don't know how Freddie is. That kind of surprised us.
Got a different number, so I'm gonna go
Yeah.
back and check my,
Yeah.
my files, because, I've got a number that's higher than the two numbers just discussed. It's actually approaching the 8,600 number. And that close for a geography as large as ours, I really think we need to question it and make sure it's valid. That's all I'm suggesting, because it does have a major impact into our finances.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does. If y'all want.
I did look at last year's. We're 26 numbers higher. It's not much, but
Yeah, if y'all want to take a month
Yeah,
on
I'll
it,
get you.
there's not any magic to having it set now. We just put it on the agenda because LJ had us to back up to be able to prepare the resolution.
Is that back up in our packet?
It is.
It is? Okay.
Well, it's just a resolution in the.
Oh, it's a resolution. Okay.
The exhibit.
Because last year I got a big.
Six number comes from the 9,100 total, 95% of that equals the 86 and change. The calculation is in here on page, I have it here,
43.
43 through 47. That's where the details are.
43 or
The contract.
Okay.
So the numbers on page 43, I'm assuming you're talking about the resolution, those are for your alternate
Build
build
that.
out, based on the updated numbers provided by the WWA. So,
Right.
without looking at what's in your packet, your ultimate water is 8417, and your ultimate wastewater is 9091.
8417 and what?
9091.
9091.
Yes,
And 9091 is here in the packet.
that's correct.
The 8417, I think, shows 8637 here.
So the 8637 is your 95% of the wastewater. So that's the threshold you have to have in order to
That's
meet.
not the actual.
This is actual.
No, that's the calculated
Yeah,
map.
that's just 909 times 0.95.
Okay, right, okay.
Threshold is 95%.
Yeah.
Both items.
All right. We have to,
You don't have to approve it today. If y'all want to sit and chew on it, you can. It's up to the board.
Yeah, roll it.
Okay.
let's roll it. Okay, item 16, consider an act on the Harper's Landing shared use path proposed by the Woodlands Township along State Highway 242. Did you all get a chance to look at that, read it? All right. I guess we need to make a motion.
Can someone explain that?
Sure, we've received a request from the township to ask for support from the MUDs that are along 242, that this would affect essentially MUD 46, 47, 67 and Metro. The pathway would affect, they're trying to get a grant from TxDOT to put in a pathway, which is a 10 to 12 foot wide sidewalk essentially along the south side of 242 to connect all of the commercial and medical facilities, as well as tie it into Harper's Landing, and it'll go all the way to 1488. So they're asking for basically support from the MUDs. The 3 of the 4 MUDs have already voted on it. You're the last one.
I thought the state approved that already.
Not the pathway. They're needing a grant to pay for it, is what they're trying to do.
So we're supporting it. We have no financial involvement.
Correct.
Got it.
Is there any other impact on us?
No, in fact, I asked about the location as it relates to our facilities, water, sewer. If we had to dig up, we had a break or something. And they said that the pathway itself would be repaired by the township, paid for by the
How do you
township.
get over Highway 45? That was my story. How do you get over Highway 45?
Go under.
You go under
You
it.
go under, if they're gonna go under.
This was in the master plan that we worked on.
Yeah, years ago. So this form letter that's in our packet?
That's not gonna, yeah, they gave that as an example. We'll write our own on behalf of the four MUDs, and they said they don't need a separate letter, so I'll just put each of the four MUDs. If you also acknowledge, and then if you want, I can send you out a draft before it goes, or a copy once it's done, or however you'd like.
Yeah, just,
You want to
Do you
support
want, do you need a vote
her? I
now?
need concur, yeah, I need a.
yeah, okay, I'm gonna I'll make a motion that we support this
This,
proposed, it's not a resolution, but that we support this
Landing
plan,
here.
support this,
Support the township in trying to get the grant.
Yeah,
yes,
I'll second that.
okay. And is there any discussion, pro or con?
This is a good deal.
Yeah,
It-
no money.
No, it's a good deal from,
Oh, absolutely.
It connects Harper's Landing to,
The other one's about the same.
it gets you all the way to the college. Right now,
It
there's no way to
allows-
get to the college.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes.
All right, great.
All right, item 17, general manager's report. And before you begin, I do want to say, I really like the way you did this little piece of paper that you put in the package.
Okay.
It's very detailed.
Great.
The only feedback I would have for you is it says March on the top instead of April.
Good deal.
Yeah. That's the only complaint, then you're doing good.
All right. Well, let me go over a few highlights on it, and I'll try to get run through it pretty quick. Just a few highlights. Wanted to update you on the One Water Task Force. The township did look at that, and there was a vote to authorize the resurrection of that task force. So we've met with township just preliminarily to talk about what that might look like and what some of the goals and focus that would be. I think everybody recognizes that focus and goals need to be identified pretty clearly as they go forward. So more to come on that. There is an update on the TACUS settlement. We have come to terms with TACUS, and so we will be doing a pro rata split of the proceeds that came back, as well as some of the remaining costs that haven't been billed back to you. So
For 46, it's only a couple of grand.
it's not much, right?
Yeah.
46 did not have much interaction with that, correct?
Yeah.
Also in your packet is a summary that we received from Montgomery County Appraisal District. It's a summary of some revised positions and salaries. Bottom line is there is no change to the bottom line of the budget. It was more of a realignment of various positions that work there at Montgomery County Appraisal District. So no changes.
We fund the appraisal district off the state fund. We fund it.
Taxing jurisdiction.
Taxing jurisdictions.
Yeah.
I was at another meeting.
Doesn't that pay your salary, Jeannie?
Taxes.
Don't that pay your salary? Or do we pay your salary?
I was shocked when he told me that. That was the appraisal district.
Just a couple more items. I just wanted to
Appraisal.
announce some service recognition to a couple employees at Woodlands Water Agency. Maureen has reached 25-year service.
You bet.
And then Tony Rendon, who is a field supervisor, is at 41 years.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Must be really old.
He started working here when he was high school.
Just a couple remaining items, just to point out some articles in your packet. One is on lead service lines. That is going to be a topic that you're going to be hearing about more over the next year as it relates to lead and copper.
We don't have any lead service.
Probably not, but that doesn't take us out of the loop. We still have quite a bit of work to do to build an inventory essentially. So ideally, correct, we shouldn't. And then PFAS, some chemicals that are hitting the news, that's in there. And then there's some additional information on some things that we've put out to the public related to the strategic communication plan that was adopted. And then finally, just two kind of trustee related updates. One was from the PEC is going to be meeting next week on the 26th. As you heard, obviously, quite a bit from SRA earlier, that there is a significant amount of infrastructure that's coming down the pipe in the next decade. And so we do believe that it is going to require a pretty significant public outreach campaign to educate the public. Tom, to your point, we really need to make sure that we're getting the word out, that the public understands it, our customers understand why, what, how, what the effects are, and those types of things. So we'll be working with SRA to help build that. And we're looking at bringing in a PR firm also to kind of help with some of the messaging. And of course, that'll most likely correspond with the Woodlands 50-year birthday, or anniversary, which will be next year. So, you know, as the Woodlands turns 50, so does your infrastructure, and it's getting old, but that'll be that. And then the final thing I wanted to just update you on is the Personnel Committee made recommendation to the trustees last week. The trustees approved the modification of the Woodlands Water Agency holiday schedule. And so for the result of that is 2023, Woodlands Water Agency will recognize Veterans Day as a recognized holiday. And then we'll keep the floating holiday. And then in 2024 and beyond, we will add MLK, Presidents, and Veterans as recognized holidays and remove the floating holiday. And that will net a difference between 10 recognized now and 12. And what it does is it puts a WWA in consistency with the other municipalities in the region, SGRA and some others. I think we compared 6 or 7 different agencies in this area that were all, that puts us in alignment with them. So that was approved by the trustees. And that's all I had.
All right.
Oh, I did want to update real quick. It's in your packet, but we did have a pretty significant pipe failure on the pond there. And that repair is the 60-inch storm sewer pipe. So it was a pretty significant repair. I believe the estimate or the cost estimate was something around $40,000, but we'll begin the
Final inspection is tomorrow. The contractor requested the final 2:30 tomorrow.
Was that because of age or because of what?
Yes, it was a corrugated metal pipe that's just disintegrated because of age over time. That's not uncommon. Corrugated pipe.
Right.
It's a metal pipe.
Yeah.
That's all I had. Thank you.
I have a, and again, I'm going by memory. I believe I saw the other day that I got a message about irrigation from the WWA.
Yeah.
They were recommending that we cut our water on one day this week. And you know, the max you can do is 2 days. So that's kind of like the 50% level. And I was really surprised by that. And the reason is I go to those master gardening classes at Texas A&M. And they would say, you know, right now, they'd never recommend you cut your irrigation in. So I was just, if it's true, I mean, if I didn't just see misunderstood, but it seems like if we are recommending put irrigation on, it seems like we're doing it to their standards very early, and maybe you can go, the Texas A&M is located by the airport.
Sure.
And there are state agents there that maybe you can discuss it with. So I've been in a master gardening class.
This is coming from John Geiger, right?
Yeah.
So they
Well-
did a calculation and identify how much rainfall
Yeah.
fell in the previous week,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Okay, well, let's move on. Item 18, update on the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. Is there any update? All right, item 19. Receive a report from the financial advisor.
Good evening, everyone. David Wood. Call tonight to discuss your outstanding debt. Passed out 2 things that I think would be helpful in that discussion and that you can have for your reference going forward. One of the handouts is what we call a debt book. It says bond debt service breakdown. It's got all the details to the 6 series of bonds that the district has outstanding at the moment. These are, of course, your general obligation bonds that the district had issued, and payment of principal and interest on these bonds is supported by the debt service tax that we levy each year. So I will note that those 6 outstanding series were all issued for refunding purposes. So all the bonds that we have outstanding were issued to refund previously issued bonds in the Chiefs and debt service sales. In total, there is $49,205,000 of principal amount outstanding at the moment. That's, of course, after your March 1st payment this year. And on that principal amount, through the life of the structure of the bonds, is about $7,062,000 interest. So total principal and interest combined, debt service obligations on your existing debt is about $56.2 million.
And there's nothing beyond 2030. This is the
Nothing
full
beyond-
debt service retired at
Correct, yeah.
maturity.
Absolutely, yes. So you can see there, the first 3 pages are just different iterations of showing your total debt combined. You can see there your 2015A, 2015 bonds, and then your 2021 bonds all have a final principal payment on March 1st, 2030. The 2019 bonds have a final principal payment March 1st, 29, and then 2016 bonds in 28, 2017 bonds in 26. So yes, all of your existing debt, assuming the timely payment of each principal at maturity, will be completely done.
And the debt for each of these bonds is fixed or floating?
It's fixed rate, yes. These
Fixed
are-
rate.
that's
Is,
coupons.
does the loan or bond document allow for any type of repackaging if we wish to do that as a board?
Repackaging, if you mean,
In other words, if I wanted to sell our debt on a net present value, since the interest rate's high and the interest rate on this is low,
sure,
theoretically, most financial institutions will discount that note if we pay it off, and we could issue another request for funding and extend it beyond the 2030.
No, that's one.
That's why I was asking if what the,
Implementation, you can only, as well as city of Houston,
Pay it off.
debt requirements.
again, I'm commercial background. I'm not governmental.
You have, it has to be
Oh, okay.
apples to apples, so you can refund debt if your net present value savings are 3% or more on what is being refunded, but the maturity schedule has to stay the same as the bonds that are being refunded. You can't extend it out further, so, yeah, that's in the private world, yes, you could go refund and maybe extend out to kind of lower your year to year.
It's cash flow, yeah, exactly correct. No, I understand how that works fully. Okay.
yeah,
So there's no way for us to take advantage of any type of net present value beyond the 3%, unless it goes beyond the 3%
Correct.
refund to the constituents.
we could do a refunding transaction if we kept the principal structure to the same extent, of the prior bonds. And if the market allowed for, but you'll see if you dig through here, your 20,
Trust me, I'll dig.
okay.
No, I will count on it.
The interest cost on your outstanding debt is so very low. And again, all the 6 outstanding bonds are refunding bonds.
Well,
We've already,
that's my whole point.
Right.
It's such a low debt at this point. We should get back at least 5 to 6% of the current balance of the bonds, depending on their duration. That was a back of the envelope kind of analysis that I did. That's why I was asking if we could repackage it, because again, I'm not familiar with how government bonds work at all.
sure. So yeah, as Brian said there, the only thing we could do with these bonds as far as debt service savings, and some of them don't have a call feature, so we couldn't, refund them at all. But the ones that we could refund and do have a call feature, we would be able to still debt to the same, maturity structure as in the, existing outstanding debt.
But we reduce the amount of money
And
and change the interest rate.
and achieve debt service savings and.
Yes, of course.
Yes, but, again, the interest costs that you have right now are already so low that.
I asked the question wrong. Is there anything that you or your firm can suggest that would reduce the cash flow impact on the constituents of 46?
Not this time, no.
Okay, thank you.
No.
I'll still dig through this.
You're making 4.5% in text right now, and most of these coupons are well below that. I mean, one of your series has a, 1.8% coupon, right? They're not,
Yeah.
the interest cost that you have on your outstanding debt is extraordinarily low.
Oh, no, I know that. That's why I was thinking the net present value. Yeah, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, the main thing is the extension, how you can extend it, that really ties your hands in terms of, I think, doing what you're thinking of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the 3 pages, to sum up all the series in total, then each individual series. The other thing I handed out is a TMR, a Texas Municipal Report. This is put out by the Municipal Advisory Council. They update it periodically. This report was updated as of June of last year. Therefore, we don't have some of the latest information as far as taxable values and such. But it does have some detail that are not included in the other handout in relation to the 6 series of outstanding bonds, which you might find helpful, but have to answer any questions about your debt.
If I have questions, I'll give a call.
Please do.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, item 20, receive update on matters pending between the Woodlands Water and TACUS. You already gave that. Item 21, receive the Woodlands Water Trustee Report. It's in the package. Is there anything
I
else?
covered a couple highlights of it,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything else you want to highlight.
Just really quick, I just had some questions about, there was a question about chlorine levels reported at wastewater treatment facility number 1. And there was supposed to be, there's gonna be a list of what is included, I'm sorry. I just maybe in the next meeting or maybe in your report, you just say what that's about, the chlorine level reported at treatment facility number 1.
I can get it real quick. There's 3 plants. 2 of them showed the chlorine levels as one number, and the 3rd plant showed it as a high and a low, max min. And the trustee asked, why is the one have the max min and the other have just a single number? And the answer was that the 2 plants are above 1 MGD, which, as you know, requires a dechlor. And so the other one was the small plant, which is under 1 MGD, which doesn't require dechlor. That's why you have that min and max. So that's what he was asking. He didn't understand why it was reported differently.
Okay,
So there was no excursions in what was reported as it pertains to chlorine at any one of the 3 plants.
I don't know who writes this, but maybe they could maybe add more detail, like when they write these reports and stuff, like if there's something like that, because that was a
Okay.
fine explanation.
Okay.
One question for our trustee. What did you find out on the excess funds? Because you are cited in there.
So this is just.
Page 60, last paragraph.
I guess my comment would be, was that, when.
SJRF, right?
Yeah, when Mr. Meeks, brought that up, the board felt, at least, I mean, you know, the comments out of the board was, this was gonna be put into escrow. I mean, that's what the trustee president said, we're gonna take the 370 and be put in escrow, not understanding at the time,
How big a bag are we talking?
370,000. So my understanding time was, it was gonna be the good guy applied to the future. And so, you know, it didn't seem like it was a big event. Well, then I went to the SJRA board meeting, and it was kind of like a celebration that they got this 370 and they're going to spend it immediately. Now, to give Mr. Meeks credit, he did put a note in the packet that I think everybody didn't. I didn't understand it, and so, but I think the catch my criticism would be when you got up there to talk, and it was evident that the board president and the other members didn't comprehend that. You know, they said, we can move this to escrow. You mean, then you probably should have mentioned the letter.
So I wasn't at the last trustees meeting, but I watched the video and I heard the discussion. So I went back to the March trustees meeting and watched the discussion. Escrow was never mentioned. So there's confusion in my mind, but we can,
I mean, I watched the video too.
Yeah.
And.
so if you know Mark sent it to me, I'll be glad to take a look.
Okay.
But the,
I'm just saying, you know, the impression the board had was this is gonna roll into the, you know, a good guy later for next year.
so the excess funds is an annual item. By resolution, we can only put it in R&R or only in O&M. The note or the memo that we provided was in the February mud packets. That was discussed at the mud packets. It was also in the February as well as March trustees package. So I can definitely explain further, but there's no way for me to put it in escrow. And the
Well,
project,
I understand.
but the projects that were identified and approved by the trustees and the MUDs are the same ones that went to the board. And if you're interested, I do have the cover sheet for the budget amendment that went to our board that states and reads just like the memo that y'all got as well. So.
Could that be sent out to the board members here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in our packet?
I'll definitely.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
Not in.
I mean,
That's why I didn't see
yeah,
it.
I would rather.
That's always one of the options.
All right.
What is our?
Do you have any other questions?
What is
No, sir.
All right, Brian, do we need to? Okay, let's go to item 24. Does anyone want something placed on next month agenda?
What are we gonna do with this?
Okay, well, I'm gonna talk about that next.
We got a minute.
So you all have one of these. Look at it. If you have any changes, give it to me today because we are going to finalize it after the meeting. Also, I have some announcements. MUD 1 and MUD 6 are kind of in the preliminary talks about consolidation. So just put that in the back of your, it's not going to happen.
6 said they're not interested at this time. They want to revisit.
They tried it a year ago or two and it failed. But anyway, okay. Also MUD 1, 2 of the directors have resigned. So Jeff Long and Helen Bostock, and they are looking for replacements. Mud 47 also lost two of their directors. Paul Brown, he died and suddenly, and Laura Norton has resigned or will resign. So they are looking for two new directors. So, all right, that's all I got. I need a motion to close.
So motion.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? All right, let's get out of here. Okay.